Hello, my APUS history friends. Hope everybody is doing well. So we have a quiz tomorrow, and we're, probably about a third to almost half of the way done with Unit 4, so I figured a good time to post a little 5 to 6 minute recap video. So getting into Unit 4, our big ideas here, the United States is really expanding, not only in terms of physical land with things like the Louisiana Purchase, and as you're going to see eventually the acquisition of Florida from Spain, but also in terms of federal power. The power of the presidency and the power of the federal government is starting to take shape as more powerful than the state and local governments. We'll get into examples of which here soon. We also have a rapidly changing U.S. economy. That is seen, originally with context back with Alexander Hamilton's financial plan, but continues forward into things like the Embargo Act under Jefferson, the America System under Henry Clay, and our slow grind here into industrialization and capitalism has really, begun in this unit. We will also eventually, even though we're not there yet, we'll look at marginalized groups in the unit and the rise of women's rights, issues with new immigrants into the United States, as well as continued slave revolts and the mistreatment of the black population of the United States. So that's kind of Unit 4, like as an overarching thing. So starting with Jefferson, we look at his ideas for America. He significantly believes that the United States should be subsistence agriculture based economy. So part of the reason why he buys the Louisiana Purchase and part of the reason he has the policies that he has is he fundamentally believes that if you're going to keep the government out of people's lives and you're going to keep government small, which he wants as a Democratic Republican, you need to be a subsistence farmer. That's the only way to sort of control your own life and not have the government taking advantage of you or taking too much power. That's really his ideas. So he comes into power with a revolution of 1800, not the typical revolution you think, more so just the transition of power from one group, John Adams is Federalist, to Thomas Jefferson. The important part here is there's no violence. It is a peaceful transition of power. It's the first time we have a transition of power from one political party to the next in the U.S., so that's pretty significant in its own right. This also brings up the idea of Marbury versus Madison, the first Supreme Court case that you really need to know. Chief Justice John Marshall, who's cousins with Thomas Jefferson, essentially rules in this court case that the Supreme Court has certain powers that are not outlined in the Constitution, and sort of Jedi mind tricks the entire United States government into believing or confirming that the Supreme Court has the power of judicial review. Again, the Constitution is the rule book. It is your guide, right, for the rules. Democrats, Republicans, House of Representative members, the senators, the president, all of them are playing the game, and the courts are supposed to be the referees. So Marbury versus Madison gives them the power of judicial review. It's incredibly significant moving forward in this class. Afterwards with Jefferson, we do have things such as the Embargo Act, which is put into place because of the impressment of soldiers and sailors by the British and French navies. Essentially, the British and French were capturing American ships, showing us no respect, even though we beat the Americans or beat the British in the American Revolution. We're still not taken too seriously as a country. Because of this and because of Jefferson's view of America, he cuts off trade with the rest of the world in the Embargo Act. This does not go so hot. It shows us that we are going to need to become a much more industrialized country. We're going to need to trade on the world stage, and it also directly leads to the War of 1812. War of 1812, British versus the United States, part two, if you will, of the American Revolution. Your question on your quiz, your short answer question is going to be essentially to what extent is the War of 1812 a second American Revolution? Personally, I would argue that it is quite a big deal, and I would consider it another American Revolution. At least that's what AP is looking for as well. This reason is because we have massive political, social, and economic, and also foreign policy changes because of the War of 1812. Foreign policy-wise, we see the United States taken much more seriously on the world stage. No longer will people be asking us for bribes like in the XYZ affair or with the Barbary pirates in Jefferson. They were asking for bribes to trade there. Also showing executive power, by the way, with the Barbary pirates declaring war without asking Congress. Anyway, the War of 1812 is going to get us more respect on the world stage. It's also going to show us that we need to change economically. The War of 1812 directly leads to the market revolution and Henry Clay's America system, which tries to reunify the country economically by building canals, railroads, highways, things of this nature, to try to link the country together. So you can connect the North, the South, and the West at the time is basically Ohio, right? All through this. So War of 1812 is pretty significant economically. It is also significant socially. The War of 1812 sparks a lot of nationalism for the U.S. The Star-Spangled Banner is written in the War of 1812. And we also see that the War of 1812 has massive political changes because of the Hartford Convention. Essentially, New England threatens to secede from the United States. So yes, we think of the South as usually the one that's secession in the Civil War, and they do. But New England technically threatens it first. They do not agree with the war with England. Remember, New England is mostly wealthy merchants at this time, and they specifically want to trade with the French and the British as the two most wealthy, powerful countries in the world at the time. So they're very upset about Mr. Madison's War, as they call it, or the War of 1812. So they all meet in Hartford, and they threaten secession. This also leads to the death of the Federalist Party. New England was the Federalist stronghold, back then. And because of the national pride, because of the U.S. doing quite well in the War of 1812, the Federalists have very little support moving forward. People look at them as the ones that didn't want to fight the war, the ones that weren't supportive of the U.S., and when this sweeping nationalism comes in, it really knocks them down. A couple other topics, I missed going through here. With that revolution of 1800, we see the 12th Amendment come into play. You now have to select a running mate to run for president to avoid any sort of confusion. We also missed Gabriel's Rebellion. Gabriel's Rebellion is one of the first slave uprisings in the newly formed United States. Essentially, the effects of that are the significant ones. It becomes much more difficult and much more harsh in terms of slave life in an attempt to prevent a revolution. More stricter laws are put on the freed black population as well as the slave population as a whole. The last part that, I need to hit on really quickly are Native American wars. The British, part of the reason why the War of 1812 starts is not only the trading issue with the Embargo Act, but because the British are arming and funding Native Americans to uprise against the Americans on the western frontier. So, very harsh treatment of the Native Americans after the War of 1812, very harsh treatment before as well, obviously, just a continuation throughout the entire class is essentially this. Tecumseh rises Native American groups together to rebel against the United States, which is put down by Andrew Jackson and William Henry Harrison. Anyways, good luck on your quiz tomorrow. Let me have you, if you have any questions, and I will talk to you later.